In this lesson, I want to think about engaging. Engaging in a constructive self-care practices, not destructive. There is self-care and there's self-denial and there's manipulative self-care and manipulative self-denial. I'll chart this out for you so that you can figure out how I've been trying to think of reframing how a minister can take care of themselves and how the scriptures and theology and practices meld together to allow me to care for myself as I care for others. Let me begin with an analogy of house and home. In a home, you dwell, you hang pictures on the wall. The home is where the heart is. You're proud to dwell in it. A house is where you just go through it. A dwelling that you just pass through, it's utilitarian, and you don't pay attention to upkeep and nurturing. It's minimalistic in the bad sense. Our bodies can have this duality between being a home, we love it and cherish it, and a house. At the same, there's indwelling sin, and we need to shed it. And so, what is a theology that allows us to deal with the body in terms of a home and a house? Well, let's think first of all of how we go about thinking about self-care, because sometimes self-care is placed as the opposite of self-denial. I either care for myself and all my needs, or I deny myself of my needs. Well, instead of thinking of it like that, we are reframing it to dual continuums. Self-care on the left-hand side can be a manipulative self-care or a constructive self-care to the right. The same thing also with self-denial. It can be manipulative or it can be constructive. With manipulative, we mean done without the power of God and the resources of God, done basically without faith. It is done in the strength and wisdom and knowledge of ourself, and it is done with selfish reasons and in wrong methodology, manipulative that is, whereas constructive would be done just the opposite, by faith, with the resources that God gives. So when we think about what needs to be cut, it's the manipulative part of self-care, and it is the manipulative part of self-denial, because both self-denial and self-care are good things. And yet there is an aspect of it that needs to be cut, and then there's an aspect of it that needs to be nurtured. The constructive parts of it have to be nurtured. So when we think about this continuum and how we think about working along it, let's begin with manipulative self-denial. In 1 Timothy 4:3, you find an example where it says, don't get married, don't eat this food. Colossians 2:23 also has this manipulative self-denial where you break down the house, the body, the house, thinking it will accomplish eternal benefits. That's an example of asceticism. That's a big word. Think about it as manipulative self-denial. Now, go to constructive self-denial is the whole theology of taking up the cross. Take up your cross daily and follow me. Luke 9:23 and other passages allows God to break down the house as a response to his self-giving. God's example in the flesh, being Jesus Christ, he allows me to respond by breaking down the house, breaking down all that which is contrary and animosity against him. Manipulative self-care is you feel so much at home in your body that you think your body is your only or main home. That's self-indulgence. Revelation 3:17, because you say I'm rich and have become wealthy and have need of nothing, and you do not know that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked, says Revelation 3:17. That's what you need to be thinking about when you're doing it in your own strength. You're manipulating your own self-care, and therefore you don't need God. You don't need what He has. These are resources that were present in Revelation 3:17 in that town, and the people thought we can be self-sufficient. Constructive self-care, God feels at home in your body. You're open to questions and allowing others to minister to you. Why? Because God has thought that the community was necessary for your well-being. In all areas of weakness, that's the passage where in all things to enjoy, the rich are admonished to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. That is constructive self-care. Constructive self-care in the Laodicean church in Revelation 3:18 would have looked like this. I counsel you to buy from me, says God, gold refined in the fire, so you can become rich, and white clothes to wear so you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes so you can see. Instead of self-sufficiency, you need that dependence. So, what are some so what's, some questions that come out of this dual continuum between self-care and self-denial? 4 questions. The road of constructive self-care. Number 1, am I receiving gifts for my body as an act of faith from God? Are these actions toward my body advancing God's work? It's an exercising is then an act of faith. Question 2, can I clearly identify when I'm treating my body as a house and when as a home? In the body as a home, I'm allowing God to design the shape and function. I'm giving up designing rights and joyfully accepting the work of God. I listen to input from others on taking care of myself. My body is part of a new community. That was question 2. Can I clearly identify when I'm treating my body as a house and when as a home? Number 3, am I allowing God to deconstruct the house? It hurts, and I need disciplines that feel like death. Yet because I respond to the life Jesus lived, which includes cross-bearing, I die with a sense of hope in the midst of pain. Am I allowing God to deconstruct the house? Question number 4. What practices for my body should immediately stop because my motivations are manipulative? This is the prayer. Spirit of the living God, please reveal these to me. I'm ready to give up control. So at any given day, these 4 questions help us understand how we live in these dual continuums between manipulative self-care, constructive self-care, manipulative self-denial, and constructive self-denial. The redemption story asks us that the embodied self to be part of a renewal of all things, which requires God to break down the house and build up the home. How do we love our bodies as a home while hating it as a house at the same time?